Paragraph 648. Myth is not fiction. It consists of facts that are continually repeated and can be observed over and over again. It is something that happens to man, and men have mythical fates just as much as the Greek heroes do. The fact that the life of Christ is largely myth does absolutely nothing to disprove the factual truth. Quite the contrary. I would even go so far as to say that the mythical character of a life is just what expresses its universal human validity. It is perfectly possible psychologically for the unconscious or an archetype to take complete possession of a man and to determine his fate down to the smallest detail. And certainly we see that in our current president, who is definitely living an archetypal life. Okay, so in the God image, page 72, Christian theology interpreted Christ as sent to save man from the veil of tears, get up to heaven ASAP. But actually, we're there, right? But the alchemists say that the Philosopher's Stone is the savior of the universe. This means essentially the same thing as Jung is talking about when he speaks of the requirement for Yahweh to become man because Job has seen him. Okay. And so, in essence, I think what we're saying here is that the Philosopher's Stone is that we're it. There isn't anything else. Yeah, there might be other creatures out there, and yes, they may be sending messages to shovels. But I see the power of the transpersonal self. I definitely do, and I've seen it around this table personally, and.
Philosopher's Stone.
Pardon?
The Philosopher's Stone, the power to transmute.
The power what?
The transmutation.
Right, and so it's this guy. This is the little human culus. This little essence in the middle of everything, which Jung depicted on his stone, is what's traveling through the universe, and it's in all of us, and we have to respect that. And it's a very powerful idea, really, when you think about it.
Practically speaking, people can't avoid the symbol because that's part of man, right?
Right.
The symbolic, the metaphor. But it's channeled by culture in certain ways, like celebrity or Star Wars or whatever it happens to be. So a lot of artists maybe are leading the way, but it's very, in our culture anyway, it's very diffused and scattered, and it's not unified or anything like that.
Right.
So it appears that people aren't conscious that they're seeking themselves in these symbols, right? For the most part.
Definitely not. Okay, that's the issue that we're discussing here after a year, finally, that this group of 4 people understands that that's what you should be doing, okay, seeking those symbols within yourself and within your own dreams, and so on.
So my question is, are they genuine symbols, or are they manufactured symbols that people are chasing, and therefore they're going to be morally bankrupt?
Well,
In other words, you need
that's the issue. I mean, if you're
symbols,
chasing having a Maserati or a Lotus in your driveway, then that's probably a false symbol.
or an Elvis, right? Or
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or that's right. I mean,
Michael Jackson or
yeah,
okay, so
those are not your symbol, okay, and so I don't know how teenage women who went to an Elvis concert ever lived with themselves after.
well, I know a lady who's about, I don't know, in her 60s she still worships Elvis. Every time
Right,
I see
and
her, she's like, I wear my London hat, and it's like, oh, she started talking about the Beatles. No, I'm sorry, that was the Beatles.
Right.
The Beatles. Starts talking about the Beatles, and she's been to all her concerts and that sort of thing.
right,
That's
and
what, she's still
so
living
people,
that myth.
yeah, so people get taken away by those symbols, but the symbols are actually within us, and people
But that's an archetype in a way.
by the herd instinct, right? If you go to a Elvis concert and you're 15 years old and everybody else is going ah, then you're going to go ah, right?
It's an emotion. It's emotionally charged.
It's emotionally charged, but we're talking about emotion here, right? Because it's not rational.
It's mob mentality.
It's
That's
transrational. Pardon?
mob mentality, but
Well, yeah, I
the
mean
positive
that's
of a
that's
concert.
herd instinct. So, okay, so every night on the television, they say, "Oh, you're going to be happy if you have a Toyota Camry." Okay, and so a certain percentage of the population goes out and buys Toyota Camrys, and everybody sees Toyota Camrys on the road, and you say, I'm driving a car and it's not a Toyota Camry, so I'm not happy, right?
National
Because
happiness.
everybody's happy with a Toyota Camry because on the ads, everybody's smiling and ecstatic when they're driving a Toyota Camry. But that isn't happiness. Okay, it's not happiness because a model on an ad for 15 seconds can hold a smile. Okay.
I think a Gnostic would say happiness is irrelevant.
Well, they might. Okay, they might indeed. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it is. Okay, I don't know what the objective is finally, but I think each of us has to find our own symbol for our own objective. And all I know.
See, I think of symbols more like vehicles that you live through. You don't just, it's not like green stamps you put in the book. And you say,
Right.
I got this.
Right. It's like I have no idea why I'm here every week. Okay, and also
We've had a discussion now.
no, and also why I'm early. Okay, because I'm never early for an event. I'm always 10 or 15 minutes late. Okay, but we've had like 44 sessions or 45 sessions, and I've never been anything but 15 minutes early to any.
Like a teacher, you want to be here before your students.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
of
because
course,
you-
but I have no administration that's forcing me to be on time or anything like that. I'm not going to have my pay docked if I don't show up, right? And yet, so there's something that's causing me to be here. I don't know what that is, really, honestly. I mean, I know that Jung has been quite meaningful to me, but why I'm leading these sessions, I have no clue. And
You'll figure it out one day.
and I really have no clue why any of you come.
that's our break homework.
Well, yeah, I told you when I got here why I came.
No, I understand why you.
Escapism.
Right.
There's
Okay.
bars for that.
All right.
But
Right
I'm
here.
still in the middle of a question.
Okay. So in the middle of your
Okay.
question, we're talking about the
I
image.
had to give that up around 40.
So the idea is to bring up our own images and our own dreams and things like that.
Your own image, your own. That's right. Your own symbol.
So are people not doing that and bringing up their images that they see around them?
Right,
In other
because-
words, that is something that is coming up within them. Like for instance,
Right. Because I think that.
David Bowie may be a symbol for somebody, but it's not for me.
Right, and I think that what's happening in modern society, and it's a big risk, is that people basically can't get through to what the symbol that's going to drive them, because what's really them, what's really their self. Okay, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for yourself, right? And so people have so many distractions, whether it's television in the evening, or football games on the weekends, or shopping, the mall. I mean, the mall used to be a big distraction, right? In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, people used to go hang out at the mall. Now malls are empty, and instead people have their heads in the iPhone, and if they're out at a coffee shop with their head in an iPhone, right?
That's funny, isn't it?
They're not in the mall looking for
Out.
they're not in the mall looking for Mr. Goodbar anymore.
But what you're claiming apparently is that these symbols are not arising within certain.
They're being blocked, I think.
The selection of what I'm picking up on my iPhone is not arising spontaneously.
Well, I think that what you yourself, I do think that people are going for themselves, their self in the iPhone. Okay.
But isn't it doing it like the easy way? They're not doing the hard work, and that's not confronting the shadow and
Yeah, I think that's an issue. Okay,
the
because
surface.
there's just so many cat videos that you can watch, right?
They are
And,
cute.
right, and so
And so meaningful.
right, so archetypes will distract you. Okay, there are distractions, and so there's symbolic distractions too. So if you look at Facebook, okay, you can get what they call screen sucked all the time. Okay, I get screen sucked, I admit it. Okay, and I've been screen sucked ever since I met my wife online 30 years ago. 32 years ago, right? Even before that. In fact, and when I was in Japan in 1983, I was at a reserve meeting, Marine Corps reserve meeting, and a guy had been into the States, and he said, I want to teach you about something that you really have to know about, right? And Marines are interested in women, right? The anima, okay. So,
Unlike the rest of us.
so I want to teach you about something. This is 1983, right? And he said, there's this awesome thing on the Source called the Source on these email networks. They're email networks in the States. Now I was in Japan, and he says you can meet women, and you can find out what their interests are, and you can chat them up, and then go meet them and have experiences with them. And so all of us are listening to that, right?
Where do I sign up, right?
Right? So believe it or not, I was number 16 of all the tens of millions of Japanese that are on the internet. I was number 16. Okay, I had number 16 on the first international internet connection from Japan. Okay, and lo and behold, you could meet women. Okay, you could meet lots, and in fact, I met some in Japan. I mean, I didn't physically meet them, but I could meet them online, and that was 1983. And then in August of 1985, on the Source, I met Debbie, and bang, now we're one of the first couples to ever meet online and marry. And most people didn't hear about the World Wide Web didn't even exist until 1994, and most people didn't hear about things like Match.com into the early 2000s, right? And yet Debbie and I met online in 1985, and within 4 months, I packed up everything and left my wife for 17 years, right? And I knew Debbie better in that 4 months than I knew my wife that I'd been married to for 17 years. I'm convinced of that to this day. And so there's something that is there. The self is there somehow, right? And everybody's looking for that self. I think we're unconsciously looking for the self.
I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because I'm seeing that when we look at the traditional Jungian tools of dreams, active imagination, and so forth, those are kind of passe in the sense that things have moved on into this vast technology network.
Well, I think we have overwhelming numbers of images available to us today.
Yeah.
Okay, which in Jung's lifetime weren't there. Okay, people had museums, people had books with.
The only thing that's lacking is a discipline to master that, but it seems to me that could be as good a tool as anything, really.
Well, I'm not sure
For the
discipline.
average person.
I'm
For
not
the
sure
average
discipline is the right answer. I mean, the United States is not disciplined, but we're still the strongest country in the world, both militarily and
I'm
financially.
talking about discipline in terms of practice in bringing up the unconscious. Practice.
Jung
Techniques.
said at the end of his life, and I think it's still true, that there's no set way that you're going to do that. Everybody has to do it for themselves.
That's my point.
Right? That is.
That's my point, that we're not necessarily restricted to the traditional Jungian tools.
Yeah, we're not.
Because what I'm saying, maybe in a mass, people are individuating. We just don't realize it. They're individuating through the smartphone.
They are individuating through the smartphone, and they're doing it naturally, I think. And I think it's useful to understand the symbol and understand the basic idea of it.
But you know, the smartphone's a medium. It's not really the symbol. It mediates the.
I didn't say it was a symbol, but I'm saying it's furnishing.
Yeah, it's
Providing fodder.
yeah, it's like the equivalent of going to the museum. Okay, the museum mediates art. You know, the museum mediates getting to know Pollock, right?
I mean, I know of a woman who's trying to work through these issues for herself as far as trying to individuate as the woman, the strong
Right,
woman,
right.
and she's very actively pulling up these, like the HBO series. She's working through those characters of the Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
She's very concentrated on pulling up those symbols, those images.
Right, and experiencing those at least vicariously, and I think that's useful to an extent. That's education, right? And so we're teaching people way faster. I mean, I remember the TED talk by this Indian guy who said he just put a laptop out in a cubicle in the open in India, and he just left it there operating. And he comes back 2 months later, and this 8-year-old kid says, "We need a faster modem." But I mean, people are being drawn to it, and they are understanding its significance. They're understanding it can connect them to something they don't know what. Okay, and you know, if I were to tell them anything, it isn't what you're going to see in an advertisement that is the what. Okay, the problem is you can get an image of having the Ferrari, right? Whatever it is, fancy car. Okay, the Lexus. And you can get an image of that in your head, and that's your goal. And then you get it somehow, one way or another. And, oh, by the way, this didn't make me happy, right? And I've sort of been drawn along in that way and over the years, and then I got to the point where I was driving a 21-year-old car, and oh, by the way, I was getting everywhere just fine. Still, right? And so it isn't about the car you drive. That's not going to make you happy, or it's not going to satisfy you that you've lived the life you were supposed to live.
I see parallels with the crash, the recession, and prior to that, there was a big pseudo philosophy of The Secret, and you just visualize whatever you want and put it out in the universe, it'll come to you, and everyone's visualizing the Maserati and the McMansion, which is impossible for everybody
Right.
doing this.
Right,
And
sure.
It's like we were collectively on the wrong track, and it crashed, and now we're starting over,
Right.
and see if we can maybe track it a little
Right.
different this time.
Because, in reality, I've been, even after the crash, after I lost essentially everything, over $1 million in the crash, my happiness quotient hasn't changed substantially. I'm still living fine, and I still have.
What's your gross national happiness?
You have a penis on your wall.
If you go in his room on.
Well, let's put it that way. This way, we do have Tonkas on the wall, and I am happy. I know what's in them. even if the monks won't admit what's in them, I know what's in them.
They just say, I don't know.